the legendary Eli Roth, who is known for Thanksgiving, Hostel, The Green Inferno, Cabin Fever, Borderlands, you name it, he's done it. But let's bring him out. Eli Roth, let's go! Let's hear it for him. Eli, how are you, sir?
Good. What's going on, Sam Fran?
Yeah.
Happy Sunday.
Happy Sunday.
I love the Sunday crowd.
Right?
A lot of people get down on the Sunday crowd because the Friday crowd is like really hot. It's like the cocaine crowd. And then there's like kind of the, there's like a little bit of the speed crowd. On Saturday, it's just like everyone's packed. But then this is like the weed, this is like the CBD gummy. Everyone's so chill.
That San Francisco weed kicking in.
They're like, it's just Sunday. There's like, we're just waiting in lines. Like everyone's like, yeah, we're all tired. It's nice, it's great, I love it.
Eli, when you come to conventions like this, is there anything on the floor that you look forward to like buying, or a little piece of art that you may want?
Yeah, it's a problem because, I usually do like the Sunday 4 o'clock spin. Like I'll finish out, the lines kind of died out, and I walk the floor, but my wife has put like restrictions on me. Like I have to start packing my bags so they're completely filled, otherwise, if I know I have space in my suitcase, I just like fill it up with stuff. But I'm like, I have to get that goblin LP. Like I usually go for original vinyls and posters, and it always gets me at the last second. Like I'm walking out. I'm like, I know I'm not going to get anything, but that House by the Cemetery poster, it's $300. I'm taking it. I can't help it because these are things I've always wanted. Like I was leaving a convention, then I saw Fangoria number 9, which as a kid, I would look at it and $45 was how much it cost, and it was the most money I'd ever spent on any, and I could never afford it. And then I saw it at a convention, it was $45, and I was like, so happy that I could afford Fangoria number 9. It's like these weird little boxes from 11 years old that you took off.
Now, posters is interesting because I know a lot of famous directors collect original movie posters. George Lucas has a ton that he switches out. Steven Spielberg collects. What is the most prized possession poster you own?
Wow, that's a great question. I have a beautiful Italian 3-sheet of Emmanuel and the Last Cannibals that I love by Joe D'Amato. I have an original, like one of those giant 4F Porno Holocaust, which is a classic, cinematic classic, but I also have a spectacular mint condition, Ieri Oggi Domani Italian, like huge poster that's in my foyer. So like that one I saw, I was like, 'cause my wife's Italian, we wanted a beautiful Sophia Loren poster. I had to keep like all my exploitation, my Make Them Die Slowly. I have an autographed Cannibal Holocaust Locandino. So I have like all the Italian posters for like Fulci, House by the Cemetery, Manhattan Baby. But I started getting, the first one, I got a beautiful, huge poster of Eddie Ventani by Fernando De Leo, like gorgeous Gloria Guida, Lily Carrati. It's fun because the actors that are still alive, like Gloria, can like send them pictures on Instagram, like this is my office. So, but that Emmanuel and the Last Cannibals poster I'd never seen anywhere. It's pretty cool.
Obviously, hearing you talk about horror, especially international horror, is so fascinating to me. But what was your first exposure to the horror genre, and what inspired you to jump into it yourself as a filmmaker?
Like when I was a kid, I'm old, so there was no VCRs, and it was just 3 channels on TV, and maybe like the UHF channels. So you wouldn't get to see the horror movies. I remember seeing an ad for The Gates of Hell, and it's like if that movie left, it was it. You'd never get to see it. So you'd have to find some like derelict kid's older brother to describe it to you. Like there was a kid in your neighborhood that had seen Texas Chainsaw Massacre or Last House on the Left, and you have like a gang of like 8-year-olds. He's like, and then they pull her guts out one by one. Like it's like this, but the kid was dangerous. He sort of was like the hitchhiker in Texas Chainsaw. Like there was something so forbidden about those movies, and the fact that there was no way you would ever get to see it. It's like it went into the memory hole. So then, I remember when it was 8, Alien came out. Everyone's like, this is I missed Jaws, so I was too young to see Jaws. Then it came on TV, but it was heavily edited. Alien, I begged my dad to go see it, and And I was like, all right, you know, it took me, I was 8 years old, and I remember the opening credits said produced by David Giler and Walter Hill, and I looked at my dad, I was like, I want to be a producer. Now my dad was a psychiatrist, a professor at Harvard and psychoanalyst, but he'd gone to high school performing arts and had an acting background and grew up in New York City in the theater, and so he knew all of this, and he was like, well, you know, Eli, the producer has to find the money. And then it said directed by Ridley Scott. I said, well, what does the director do? He goes, well, the director gets to spend all the money and tell everybody what to do. I was like, I want to be a director. And he's like, okay. So we started shooting Super 8 and video, and it was a crazy thing to want to be a director. Nobody wanted to be a director. People didn't know what a director was. It wasn't part of popular culture. And it was, I mean, this is like pre-E.T. So there was Star Wars existed and Raiders, like Raiders hadn't even come out yet. So the concept of a director was still like pretty unknown, but I just started shooting, you know, my dad had like one of those old VHS cameras where it was the camera, like your VCR, but half of it would pop out, and that was the recording part that plugged in. I had, you know, it looked like an old news camera. So we had that in Super 8, and I just started shooting, and I was like, and my dad said, you know, if you want to do this, you're going to have to work harder than anyone else. You're going to have to work every day of your life. You might not make it. He's like, Hollywood is a pyramid, and at the top, it's a very, very little room. So you're going to have to outwork everybody else, especially since we don't know anyone in the movie industry. And it just grew from there. But I just took it seriously at 8 years old. I was like, I'm a director. And then I would shoot these animated films. I did stop motion animation, drawn animation. And when I was like 10 or 11, I did a retrospective at my school in 5th grade. I brought my Super 8 projector and played it. And the teacher, people were just like, what? Like, this is what you do? It was so crazy. So now seeing all these kids that go make movies with their phones, you know, and you can just put them up out there on YouTube, it's really incredible. But back then, I was the only one doing it.
Now, when you were shooting with Super 8 and VHS kind of recorders back then, are there techniques you taught yourself or learned that you still carry with you to today?
Yeah, well, I mean, back then you had to shoot in order because I had no way to edit it. I mean, then I figured out how to use splicing in Super 8, but, you know, VHS, you'd have to get every shot exactly in order in the way you're doing it. Or then I learned editing, VCR to VCR editing. So, you know, the principles of kind of being economical of where to put the camera, how to start with a master shot, how to do a close-up. But I was experimenting with all the kills. Like, I still remember some of the kills that I did when I was shooting, you know, whether I'm like holding the chainsaw and spraying the ketchup bottle with the other hand, and putting the camera position right to get the splattering and then adding the sound effect. Those are all techniques that you wind up using later. I put a lot on the Thanksgiving, if anyone has the Steelbook 4K Thanksgiving, I put like, you know, a lot of the stuff that Jeff and I did and some of my childhood stuff on there. All, you know, abysmal, but it's fun to just see what I was doing at 12 years old.
That's incredible. And taking some of those techniques and having a budget behind them, you already kind of know how to approach some of those scenes when you're making films now, I'm assuming.
Yeah, but the most fun is when you get away with it with no money. You know, I remember with Grindhouse when they were like, Quentin's like, yeah, and then my balls get melted in Planet Terror and put someone under the car, and I was like, okay. It was like, you know, it was obviously a contest with all the directors to see who can get the most shocking moment in the movie. And when I did that girl and the knife and the trampoline, we literally had a girl do a split, she left, popped the knife up, and in editing, and I like cut to the turkey stab, and it was like, people were like, that was the most disgusting thing in the movie. And it cost the cost of a screen, a trampoline screen, that was the price of it. It was our biggest budget thing in the movie. Was like, okay, we have to really get the dust, we gotta rip through a trampoline. That was expensive, but we're like, it's worth it. But that was like the corn cob and the ears of Thanksgiving. You know, we engineered Lizzie getting cut in half in the dumpster with puppeteers and the blood, and Adrienne Moreau made this beautiful life cast of her that gets used later, or Manny's head, but it was just a reverse shot. I was like, I need to find something that's so stupid. So I'm like, okay, so if you got stabbed in the ears, it would just go, ah, so you gotta start going, ah, and then, like that, and then reverse it goes, ah! So, and then adding the noise, which I'll often do myself, because it's fun. You know, it just goes to show that, like, often the cheapest gag is the most effective. So I like doing stuff, you know, when I'm making a movie, okay, this one is very, very heavily prosthetic, like over-engineered. We're gonna, you know, like the trampling scene, that's gonna take a lot of work, a lot of prep, and then we're like, what if we can get away with that? How do I do the knife on the trampoline, which is just an edit? There's literally no makeup, no effects, no blood, nothing, and people are like, that's the sickest thing you've ever done. Like, how do I get away with that? It's so primally satisfying when you just do like a reverse shot and the audience jumps. It's like, it's great when you can pull it off with a cheap gag.
Wow. You know, there's a question I've always wanted to ask a director, and I actually think you're the perfect person to ask this to. I have this theory that for a lot of these big budget superhero movies or big franchise movies, that a lot of studio executives would hire horror directors because they know how to manage budgets a little bit better because they've been doing kind of like DIY like yourself. Scott Derrickson, Sam Raimi, the list goes on and on. Is that something that studio executives kind of look at? They look at horror directors to take on projects like that because of that? James Wan?
Definitely. I think that there's, and I think it's the people that broke the ground, is like obviously Peter Jackson, you know, Lord of the Rings, and looking at, yeah, sure. But like, what's great is you can't tell if someone's a good director when they've been given a budget of $200 million because there's too much money. But you know when someone pulls off a great movie for $1 million, you're like, damn, this person knows how to fucking direct. When someone can pull off a movie on a low budget and it's super effective, like when Chris Nolan does Following, people are like, okay, now we're going to give him, you know, Insomnia or whatever. You know, like when studios will look at a director to see what they did with nothing, and that's really the test of a filmmaker, because it's not about framing the shots, it's how good of an improviser are you. It's like being an improv musician, you know, or something, because it's not how everything goes when you have all the resources in the world. It's how do you do it when you have no money? How do you do it when it's paranormal activity? How do you do it when it's Evil Dead? And there's a certain energy and a certain fun and a certain freewheeling chaos that those movies have that you like feel like you're in the hands of a lunatic. So when it's Toby Hooper reading Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and then Spielberg can bring them on to Poltergeist, there's like a long tradition of, you know, James Cameron, obviously, you know, when these directors that can kind of grow into these big budget movies. But obviously, you know, more money, more problems. It gets harder. You suddenly encounter a whole set of other problems that you never thought you'd have to deal with.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of oversight that goes into that and a lot of things like that.
Yeah. The more money that gets spent, the more nervous they get, the more they want to control things. So then suddenly your battles become completely different. The battle isn't having enough money. It's about just like fighting creatively over what the movie should be.
Now, can you talk about balancing and creating the suspense and gore in your films and maximizing it to use it to tell a story?
Yeah, I think that every story that you're telling has the appropriate, it depends what the tone is, the tone of the movie. Like, Thanksgiving's a holiday slasher film, so I want to play by the rules of My Bloody Valentine and Happy Birthday to Me and Halloween and all those classics of the 80s that I grew up on. We start with the identifying title, it's on a holiday, POV of the killer, like all of those things that I love about those movies, where I wanted it to fit right on the shelf between Halloween and Silent Night, Deadly Night, like as if it always existed. That was the idea of Thanksgiving. So there's a certain amount of gore that you're gonna have to do to be, you know, up there with those other movies. But it's funny because my wife and I, we made a built-up brick oven for brick oven pizza making, so we become obsessed with making pizzas. And the first time I made a pizza, I put on so much mozzarella cheese because I was like, there was fucking chins in the mozzarella, right? Well, the mozzarella was so watery, it watered, like it goes right through the dough, and then all of a sudden, like you have this like steering wheel of crust, and everything else is just cheese, it's just burning and sticking to the bottom. So I was like, fuck, we really have to do like just the right amount of sauce, just the right amount of mozzarella, just the right amount of olive oil, and then it's perfect, it's perfectly balanced, and that's what it's like shooting the gore. And everyone thinks, oh, if you want it to be better, you put more gore. More gore doesn't make it better. It often can make it sillier or boring. It's the weirdest thing. You'd think, we're gore hounds, we love this shit, we want to see fucking evisceration, but I swear to God, if you do 2 eyeballs instead of 1, you don't realize it, but 3 scenes later, you're kind of like, oh, that was cool. But like, you've already kind of shocked everyone too much. So it's like, you know, if it's a DJ, they can't play like all bangers, they gotta have like peaks and valleys. It's like, you know, like you're curating a set or like an album, it can't all be at volume 10 or you get exhausted, but more than exhausted, you get bored. So, because you're just like, you know, there's times you watch it, I called it action and fight fatigue, where you watch it, it just like feels like a chore to get to the movie by the end, you're like, oh fuck, another incredible set piece, like, ugh, I can't sit through this, it drives me crazy. When a movie is like perfectly paced, like Bondley and Claire's District B13, I was like, fuck me, this movie's incredible. That parkour at the beginning right through the end is like a perfectly paced action movie. The Raid, you know, these directors that like keep upping the ante and keeping it interesting. But horror is the same thing, that if you do the same, I try not to do the same kill twice, and I try not to do the same type of kill or type of scare 2 times in a row. And you realize that you're doing it. Like, you're like, fuck, I'm doing the same thing twice in a row. All right, this kill will be like this one will just be totally shocking. And Thanksgiving, the first 2 kills are like, the trampling is awful. It's like, it's tense, but then, you're sort of let off the hook when the guy's neck is slit and he still goes for the waffle iron. Like, there's a little bit of relief in there, and then she gets scalped, and then bash, you're like, whoa, it's like, but then the diner kill is so funny, the Manny kill is so funny that when you get to, Yulia and Evan, I wanted them to be like awful, like audition, like, oh my God, I don't want to see that. Like, these are brutal.
Right.
Like, this isn't fun anymore. So taking the audience to the point of like, oh man, did Eli just like trick us? Did he lead us down a trap? Of like, this is when you feel like you're in the hands of a lunatic, of like, oh no, he's really gonna fuck with us. That's what I want. I want people in that thing of like, I want to see what happens, but I'm scared to see what happens. But if people are just like, and checking their phone, you're dead.
Sure. Now, do we have any aspiring filmmakers in the audience at all? None? One? Eli, for you, what are 3 films that you would choose for any aspiring filmmaker to watch and kind of study?
It's interesting because, Evil Dead was the one I studied because, oh look, they spent a long time making it, but that was no money. It was just, Cabin Fever was me making my Evil Dead. It's like, you go and live with your friends, and they're with their best friend, but then they have to kill their best friend because they've been infected by this thing. It was like a sort of my biological remake of Evil Dead in a way. I even chose a cabin to look like the Evil Dead cabin, which is funny that I'm next to Bruce Campbell with him the whole weekend. So it's funny how life works out. So like Evil Dead is a great example. That's kind of a masterclass in filmmaking. There's a few of them. There's so many. It really depends on what you want to do. Like if someone's watching a horror movie, you could look at like Evil Dead, Halloween, and Texas Chainsaw Massacre as like 3 landmark films because those were movies that directors did with just spit and glue. They were movies that were made for nothing. You could tell someone, oh, go and watch Star Wars. Well, that's not really going to help you. You can look at Paranormal Activity. That will help you. That's a low budget movie. That's great. And look at Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Look at Evil Dead, Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer. And there's so many films that you watch, and they inspire you. They go, wow, these guys really, look at Saw, look at what those guys did in one room, look at Vincenzo Natali's Cube, one room movie. Really, it's just the creativity and it's the ideas. And that's the great thing about horror. The great thing about low budget horror is best idea wins. Not who has the most money, it's who has the best, coolest idea.
Yeah, that's incredible, incredible. That's it. Now, you're also a fantastic writer, and you were talking earlier about not doing the same kills twice or doing them differently. Does that start in the writing process when you start conceptualizing that stuff?
Yeah, it has to. And I always your first pass, you're like, I need to kill this person. And, I remember it was someone at Sony's like, the Yulia kill, she was like, I'm like, what? She's like, it's gonna be great. He has the gun and this, and then like, it's just not like Eli Roth enough. And I was like, damn, she's right. It was too like plain. I was like, I could see Ghostface doing this, and this movie isn't that. As much as I love Scream, and as much as I love the vibe and feel of those movies, I don't want the kills to feel like the same kills from Scream. So I was like, oh, I know. You think he's gonna fucking do this? You think he's gonna slit her throat? And he just throws her on the table saw. It was so awful. I was like, oh, I know what I'll do. And they were like, no, you can't do that. And that's when I know it's good. Anytime I kill, they go, yeah, whoa. Or that's the. Anytime people start making those noises, I go, all right, we're on to something. So, you got to think of it. But the next one, you're going to be the turkey decapitation and the parade, and it's crazy. And then Grandpa's face gets impaled. And then it's such chaos. I really wanted to slow it down for the intimate scene with Kathleen being roasted. But that was like my mute witness, the stalk and slash. She's getting away, the cat and mouse, throws the pitchfork, drags her, rips her fingernail, cooks her in the oven, turkey's done. That was the sequence I was really proud of, because I really got to, the chaos was like hundreds of extras. We were shooting it in a day or two. It was like smoke and kids screaming, and I love all that. I love absolute pandemonium, in case you haven't noticed. And I was like, fuck, why do I keep having sequences? I did this riot, now I have the parade scene, I can't have another scene with a huge crowd. But it is in the writing stage. You write it, and then you step back and you look at it, and you look at the whole sort of, you look at how far they're paced apart, you think about it in editing, you don't want to go too long without a kill, unless you're like torturing the audience and making them wait like 45 minutes, which I've done before. But then you want to, like, and it's by the numbers, like kind of meat and potato slasher. You want to kill, little story, and then a kill, and a little story. So it's just making sure that you're engaging people and that the kills are getting more and more horrible, but also that they're different. Because if you do the same thing over and over, by the end, you're just bored.
Sure, sure. Now, do any of your personal fears ever make it into the screenplays? And if so, do you have any examples?
Well, everything you're doing is some personal. I was a camp counselor in the woodworking, and I used to work with a table. I was always terrified of my fingers getting caught in a table saw. And what if I just like slipped on something and fell on a table saw? It's just like the most awful feeling. Like I couldn't, because you're just like, it's ripping out your guts and you can't stop. And how do you get yourself off? And pressing your hand on it. It's like you cut your fingers off. It's like something out of Monty Python. But yeah, Cabin Fever was I got this infection in my flesh, and then Hostel, the feeling of someone else having like total autonomy over your body and just torturing you for fun, for no reason other than like the feeling of knowing what it's like. That you've like literally, all my films are in some strange way loss of control of your body. So obviously that's a deep-seated fear. But yeah, I think that's why the directors, we always want to like outdo each other and see who can get like be the most notorious or get the biggest scare. But there is a thing where like I'm never gonna make a James Wan film. Because like the creepy puppets, the stuff he does, Conjuring, like those scares that he does so brilliantly. You know, he can walk around his house at 3 a.m. and think about that, and think about ghosts, and I'm walking around my house at 3 a.m. thinking about like, I hope I don't trip on a table saw. You know, like they're just different. It's like David Lynch has his obsessions, you know, the things he's obsessed with. It's always gonna be David, same with the Coen brothers of their obsessions. They're always gonna feel like Coen brothers movies. So those are the directors that I admire, but I think that whenever I do a scare, it's gotta be something that upsets me. And where I'm like, there's a little bit of naughtiness, like mischief that's like in my personality, like, I'm like, are you really supposed to do that? And you're like, you're not, that's not okay. That's that zone that I love to live in. Not that, oh, that's just super offensive for the sake of it. It's just like, oh, that's really fucked up and wrong. Are you sure? Oh God, why would you, like that's where I love the movies to live.
And speaking of audiences, have you ever snuck into one of your films and just observed the audience reaction and just know, oh, I got him here? Or maybe, and has that influenced your other films going forward?
Oh yeah, I mean, I always go to see my films, because you never, you're directing is the loneliest profession in the world. It's weird, but it really is, because you're just totally in your own head. And people come on and work for it for a month or a week or a day, and you're on this thing for a year, and then you're doing, people are like, oh man, I remember this, it was so long ago. I'm like, dude, I was working on it this morning, shut the fuck up. You're there, you're so in it, and then you have dreams. Like, it takes a while after you finish the film to stop dreaming about it, because you're dreaming you're making it. So it's really like in you. But it's fun. It's fun to go and watch it and see the reaction, and sometimes there's always something in the movie that gets a much bigger laugh. There's something that you're certain is gonna get a laugh, or there's crickets, and then there's other things that you're like, what? Why is that funny? Like there was a moment in Cabin Fever where Jordan Ladd's like, that guy asked for our help. We lit him on fire. And the first time we saw it with an audience, you couldn't hear the next 5 minutes because people were laughing so hard. And Jordan and I looked over, we were like, that was great acting. That was a student. Are they mocking us? Do they not really? Now we watch it, of course, it's ridiculous because we just laugh at it. But back then, I was like, wow, I didn't realize that was me. And I remember, like, there's a line in Hostel where Josh is like, there was like someone made an offhanded comment. Again, it's got like the biggest laugh of the movie because it was like so inappropriate. And the studio protected me. They're like, no, this is an honest moment. It's real. They're just like these little things in every movie. You're like, wow, that was a real surprise. And that's the fun of like, you can tell on Thanksgiving when you got them. And you never, oh man, I spent too much time on it. You shot a scene that got cut, and you're like, fuck, I wish I hadn't shot that scene because then I could have spent 2 days on this, and then it would have been really the way I wanted it to be, but it got compromised. So you're always like battling that, but when you watch and the audience jumps, I like to wait from like, okay, I got him. And I can tell from the first kill if they're like in it, if they're shocked, or if there's applause, or if there's screams, I'm like, all right, we're good. And then sometimes there's no reactions, I'm like, oh, fuck. this is gonna suck. It's not working.
Interesting. We're going to play a fun little game called Pixelated Scene Showdown. Now, we're going to be showing you pixelated pictures of films you're associated with, and you're going to have to guess which ones they are.
All right, let's see.
Let's see if we can get picture number one. What?
That's Hostel. Jamie and Eddie's in the hallway.
Are you sure on that one?
Yes.
Let's see what it is. Look at that. Wow.
I told you, I dream about this stuff.
That was good. That was
conscious.
That was fantastic. Let's go to the second one.
Oh yeah, obviously the Basterds, Green Brown.
Let's see.
I recognize that photo. I've been signing that one all day. Basterds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Man, you're really good at this. Let's go to the third one.
I don't know if that's good or bad. Ooh, finally a challenge. That's Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Okay, me stabbing the turkey.
Yeah.
Okay.
And let's go to is there another one? No?
That's it.
I think that might be it.
Wow.
Okay.
2 out of 3.
That's pretty good though. That was
Pretty good.
pretty solid. You guys have questions, you can line up at the mics. We got mics here. And let's get to your questions, guys.
Go for it.
Eli, thank you for coming. Baruch Hashem. Really appreciate you,
Thank you.
Attending San Francisco on Thanksgiving weekend. You didn't have to do that. My question is, hopefully not a hot button issue. There's a lot of directors weighing in on films and cinematic universes right now, and genre.
Mm-hmm.
You have existed in, well, every single element and facet of filmmaking. How do you feel about these directors weighing in on things that, are vast and a little complicated?
Well, I think that, we live in the internet age where any comment gets amplified and people want to get people to their website or they want to create a story out of it. So there used to be much more of a discourse in film. Like, it was fun with the director. If they liked a movie and you didn't like a movie, you'd kind of get into it with them. Never publicly on Twitter, but you'd have a discussion about it. And then somewhere along the way, someone making a comment gets perceived as negative and it gets spirals way out of control, and then you have to kind of go on the explaining it, or it's taken out of context. The news moves so fast. So I think that there's obviously differences of opinion, but I've always kind of existed in the fan culture and been like the movie where I was the guy I couldn't afford to give the thanks to the Fangoria convention, so I snuck into it and got thrown out of it. And I was not that long ago, like a year before Cabin Fever. So it's just I always loved it. I never took it that seriously of how dare they. It's just there are some movies that there's some people that like a certain type of movie, there's some people that like another type of movie. I do think what is unfortunate is that it does feel like when I was a kid, there was Ghostbusters type movies and E.T. and Raiders of the Lost Ark and Star Wars. And then there was ordinary people, Kramer versus Kramer, Chariots of Fire. There were two types of movies out of Africa, and they all existed at the same multiplex. And now you have a world where, I just saw an article today, the top 10 grossing movies are sequels. It's Deadpool, Wolverine, Moana 2, it's Wicked, and those types of sort of ordinary people, Kramer versus Kramer, those types of movies are on Netflix or on Amazon, they're on streamers, and they get it. So I think that what directors are lamenting is that we don't have the cinema culture anymore of sort of you don't have the balance where there was kind of a garden where you could kind of go see any type of movie. It does feel like dramas and comedies have now gone to stream, with exceptions, of course. And so I think that when people complain about, those types of movies, it was the same complaints I heard when I was a kid. People were like, Star Wars isn't serious cinema. I was like, what are you talking about? To me, it's everything. But I understood them because to them, they were coming from the 70s movies of 3 Days with the Condor. So I always appreciated all kinds of cinema, and I never took it as an affront to cinema that, wow, gosh, everything is turning into a universe. It never bothered me. But I think when you hear directors weighing in, there's sort of what they're really lamenting is the balance, that it's hard to make those types of films anymore.
Thank you so much.
Great question. Speaking of cinema, and this is a celebration of cinema, outside of movies you had named at the top of the box office, Deadpool, Wolverine, Moana 2, Wicked, are there any films that you've seen this year that you think people should go out of their way to check out?
Yeah, I love The Substance.
Oh, yeah,
That's amazing. And I think like that's a great example of a movie, pure auteur. If you saw Coralie's first film, Revenge is fantastic. I mean, she's such a great director, but it is a singular vision movie. I'm a big fan of body horror, obviously, and you can see it wears its influences on its sleeve lovingly, but it was so original, and it's uncompromised, and it moves in its own rhythm, and it has a European feel to it. I also love Society by Brian Usna, which Coralie had actually never seen, but clearly has similar obsessions. And body horror is some sort of societal metaphor, I think is great. I think to me, more gives the like career performance. I'd like, if it was up to me, that would win every Oscar. I loved Anora, I love Sean Baker's movies, but when I saw The Substance, there are very few films that make me go, fuck me, I haven't seen that. That was incredible. I did not see where that was going. Oh my God, like The Substance got me. I loved it.
Well, if you guys haven't seen it, you got homework to do. How are you, sir?
Oh, yes. I wanted to ask, what was it like working on The Man with the Iron Fist?
Man with the Iron Fist was the best. I love RZA. I met RZA through Quentin. Yeah, thank you. And we actually got snowed in Boston. We were flying back. We did like New Year's in Iceland. Me and Quentin and RZA. We were there for the Hostel premiere. It was so fun. And then we flew back through Boston. And we landed, because you had to go Iceland to Boston, Boston to LA. And we get the plane, and they're like, there's too much snow, all the flights are canceled, you're gonna spend the night. And I was like, you guys have like a 10-hour delay. And my parents were in Boston. And I was like, dude, you wanna go to dinner at my mom's house? And he's like, my parents' house. He's like, yeah. I'm like, Mom? She's like, yeah. I'm like, we're snowed in. I'm coming over for dinner. I'm bringing the RZA. And he's like, yeah. And she's like, I'll have dinner ready. I go, he's vegetarian. She goes, I'll defrost some pea soup. I just made some yesterday. So we went to my parents' house. It turns out my dad and RZA grew up basically a block from each other in Brownsville, in Brooklyn. My dad was in the 50s and RZA was in like 70s and 80s. Like the same tenements, the same like, and they both gotten out. You know, they both kind of gotten out of like the worst crime neighborhood in Brooklyn, and my dad became a doctor and RZA became a RZA. So they really connected. They knew the same schools, the same streets. So it was like we had this great, this amazing dinner, and then they called, so it's like fucking flight's back on. So he's like racing. He's like, yo, I'm a rapper. I know how to do this shit. Our bags are already loaded. They're not gonna win. Like we were running through the airport, like the last ones on the plane. We were just laughing. So that was the first time I met him, and he's like, I'm like, dude, when are you gonna make a movie? Obviously your music is so. And on the flight back, he told me the whole story of Man with the Iron Fist, and I brought it to Eric Newman, and we started our company called Arcade, and we were going to produce movies together, and I was like, RZA has this crazy fucking kung fu movie, but the script is like insane, but he's got such good ideas. I think I could help him, and I spent a year with him working on the script. We wrote it, so we got it right, and you got Russell Crowe, we got Quentin, and Universal's like, all right, here's some money, go do it. We went to China. I just wanted to go and be in China with RZA and like hear his life advice. It was amazing. Like I would sit there at dinner with him. He's like, "You know how to get rid of someone, right?" And I was like, "No." He's like, "You ever want to get someone out of your life? Like get rid of them?" I go, "Yes." He goes, "You just lend them money." What? He's like, "Yeah, I got cousins. I never want to talk to this guy. Lend him $5,000. Never see him again. They're too ashamed." I'm like, best money I ever spent. I'm like, he's like, all these idiots, they spend $100,000, they try to kill someone, they go to jail. Just lend them money. You will never see them. I'm like, wow. And then we were writing, and it was like a scene where someone shot and dying arms, and he's like, you know what it's like when, like when your friend's shot and he's dying in your arms. I'm like, no! I know what it's like when I don't get to use my mom's station wagon to go to high school and I have to take the bus, but like, no, you know where I live. I grew up in Newton. What are you talking about? The two of us had, but I was like, I'll make a deal with you. Like, I will never lie to you. I'm not here to like kiss your ass. Like, and he knew that. And he's like, no, I'm like, I will help you direct your first movie. And we were both like students of Quentin, I was like, I will help you make this film, I'll shoot your second unit, I'll be your producer, I'll be your co-writer, I will help you through everything, all the way through editing, but I'm gonna tell you what you don't want to hear, and you can get mad at me. I don't give a fuck. I'm just gonna tell you what I think, and you can disagree with me. So we really, like, we became family on that. I love him so much. It's like, you're literally with a genius. And his life wisdom and for me, it was just like a great life experience.
Awesome, thank you so much.
That might be the best story I've heard this whole convention. That is incredible. How you doing?
Hi, big fan.
Thank you.
My question is, when you're filming a fight scene, do you have the script out to the last punch, or do you leave it to the stunt coordinator, or do you mix it up?
It's a very good question. It depends, on Man with the Iron Fist, we know where we want to get from A to B. And sometimes you have to very specifically choreograph if they're like fighting over an object. And you don't want just sort of chaos for the sake of chaos. But then sometimes, I remember we had 3 fight stages going on Man with the Iron Fist because we just had to get the movie done. And Core UN came in to be our fight coordinator. I loved Master UN, had done it so close. So we gave him a stage and we were like, yeah, the Gemini fight. We wanted, so we'd come in and we'd see Core, he's the master, and he just came in as a favor to help out. And we're like, the stunt people were so good. Riz and I were just like, all right, we're getting out of the way of this one. So that was like, the fight scene happened, you know what needs to happen at the end of it. But it's really great when you have the time to rehearse it and block it. But then we had, a stunt coordinator just fall out on Borderlands, and I went with a cast, and we just did this one where we kind of walked them like, okay, now you come down off here, and you turn, you smash the head there, and everybody wanted to fight. Everyone's like, we want to fight. And Ariana was like, I'm gonna walk up a wall. And Florian's like, yeah, I'll grab her. So grabbed her and walked up the wall. Jamie the girl's like, I'm not punching anyone. She's like, well, I'll take Kevin's gun and shoot him and point over there. And then I'm like, yeah. And then you have a flamethrower, and then, all right, give me a flamethrower. Kato back to flame. We literally kind of walked through it in a morning and then shot it, and I was really happy with how it turned out. And then other things, you're just like, you over choreograph, and you're like, this isn't working. So it's tricky. Action is not I love it, but it's not my forte. It's like the kills are what I really get into. But yeah, it's much better. It's always better if you can plan things out and rehearse them, but life, has other plans.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hi.
Don't be afraid to improvise is the message.
Hi. So, how was your experience? Okay, so I'm asking this question for a friend, but how was your experience when you were the main character in Clown or whatever it's called? I don't remember what it's called.
Well, I was not the main character in Clown. I just did a cameo in Clown, and I produced it. And John Watts, the director, had made a short film that I saw that was a parody of Hostel, and I thought it was really funny. And I tracked him down, and I said, "Hey, do you want to turn this into a real movie?" And he said, "Well, thank you for not suing me." And I said, "Well, you don't have any money. We haven't made a movie. Let's make the movie first and spend the rest of our lives suing each other." And me and John and Chris Ford worked for a year on the script, working on the logic, working on the mythology. And these guys are brilliant writers. Their show Skeleton Crew premieres tomorrow.
Incredible.
So that was it. We started it, and then he's like, "We're doing it." He's like, "You have to play Friday the Clown." I was like, "Of course." So it was fun, but obviously John has, and it's funny because we made it, and then Bob Weinstein at Dimension wouldn't release it. He said nobody wants to see a film about a clown killing children. This was before Terrifier. I was like, I think people are gonna like this movie. But to be fair, I told John, I was like, I think you made a 90s Sundance drama about how sad it would be if you were turning into a clown that had to eat children. And the last 5 minutes of the movie is sort of what the movie kind of should have been. But he's like, I'm like, you basically made an art house drama about how fucked up it is to turn into a clown. He's like, yeah, I kind of did. So we love it. But yeah, it was a weird one.
Amazing. How you doing, Ash Catcher?
Good. So I want to know what's it like working with comedians versus traditional actors like Bobby Lee and Tim Dillon?
It's great. You cast them because you love their comedy, but all those comedians have a dark side, so you want to kind of tap into that. I think with everyone, it's about it's setting them up to succeed. It's keeping them in a zone. If I have Bobby, I'm going to pair him with Kevin Hart, and I love Bobby, and he's so funny. And I think he's actually a terrific dramatic actor. I don't think he's even tapped into his potential of what he can do as an actor. If Bobby gave some powerhouse performance, like the way Jim Carrey did, he started doing in Eternal Sunshine, in Truman Show, I wouldn't be surprised. And Tim, he'd only done Joker 2, which he's spoken extensively about. But I loved him, and I wanted him to have this fantastic kill, this fantastic scene. So, with Tim, I could just do I always give them a lot of takes, because the comedians want to get it right. and they don't want to disappoint you, and they want it to be good, but they're also really good. Like, you just have to let them know that you really trust them. And having been an actor, I know what that feels like to kind of have to parachute in to another thing. Like, oh God, I want to get this right, I want to get this right. But then it's about like really just kind of giving them the takes and giving them the time to do it. And then also, like, once you've got one, then it's like, all right, let's just see what happens. And then they can start to improvise. Then you can go off book a little bit. But when you cast someone who is a comedian versus a dramatic actor, you always just, everyone loves them, but like, it's actually easier to act with a great actor. Like, if you have Cate Blanchett acting opposite, it's much easier for them. Like, and that's one thing I learned, is that when you're acting opposite an actor that's not that good, you're like, oh, I gotta pull it. I gotta make this work. But when you're with Christoph Waltz, you're just reacting, and Brad Pitt, they're just so good. So it's a combination of giving them room to breathe, letting them feel great, and putting them with a fantastic actor. And in the case of Tim Dillon, that was the cat, Tonic. This was like Leonardo DiCaprio. This cat was fucking amazing. It's the cat from Pet Sematary. And man, Tim really, I think Tim held his own with Tonic the cat. And then yes.
Yeah, we got 5 minutes left, so we're gonna rapid fire these. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm a huge fan of your work. Two of my favorites are Hostel and Green Inferno.
Thank you.
From Hostel, my favorite part is the blowtorch in the eye.
I made stickers of that. But come on my booth, by the way. I don't have the rights or permission to anything, but I made stupid bootleg stickers that look like they were made by a 12-year-old girl, and you got them in a vending machine at a bowling alley in 1982, and they came out of an egg. But one of them was like, I wanted stuff that looked girly and sparkly that you could put on your trapper keeper. And one of them was the blowtorch in the eye.
I love that. And then from Green Inferno, one of my favorites is finding the skin at the bottom of the bowl.
Yeah.
So my question is, out of those two movies specifically, what was your favorite gore scene or kill that you did in those two?
Well, that's a good question. It's like asking who's your favorite child. I mean, I was very glad. When you're making a kill scene and you're doing it practical, it's terrifying, because if it doesn't work, you're fucked. You spend all this money, all this time shooting on film, and then it's like, in the first take, when you cut the eye, and we called it the eye-gasm, I was like, there's no biological reason that would run down, but it's just so gross. People die, I remember the audience go, no! And then, I remember Kirby, she had that neck prosthetic. I mean, we're in 110-degree heat in the Amazon jungle, and we had tubes pumping ready, and you got one shot, and that's it. And Kirby I was like, here's what you do. It's gonna be so shocking, no music, no build-up. You see the ball, you look around, you go, fuck it, I'm out. You smash it, slit your throat, and that's it. And so you've gotta slice it in time, go across where the slit is. It's like a lot to do technically and acting-wise. And the blood has to if you pinch it too tight, the hose will cramp, and then the blood won't spray, and it magic happened. But it's like with Yulia going on the buzzsaw. But until that happens, you're so scared, because you're like, if this doesn't work, the movie's gonna suck. Like, literally, the movie hinges on the kills. So it's scary, but it's hard to choose. I'm proud of both of them.
Now,
Thank you.
Thank you. We have time for one last question, but for all of you that are still in line, I highly recommend going to Eli's booth, meeting him, and you can get those questions answered.
Yeah, exactly. This is because I'm out of here soon, so come by right after this, and then before I go to the airport.
Go ahead, sir.
Hello, sir. Thank you for coming. My question is, I'm writing 2 scripts right now. I have the intro, the end. I have the rough idea of the characters. I have no idea how to bring all that together. What kind of advice would you give to get that script complete?
Well, there are a lot of good I never saw the movie Adaptation, where Nicolas Cage is making fun of Robert McKee's story structure, and then he goes to Robert McKee's story structure and helps him solve his problem. But there are some really terrific screenwriting courses that are like 3-day courses that give you the mechanics. There are those books like Save the Cat. I remember reading Vicky King's How to Write a Screenplay in 21 Days. There's certain exercises, and there's a lot of online resources, but usually breaking it down into note cards really helps. And sometimes, what I find before I start writing is, once you know your characters, they can just start talking to each other, and then you can just sort of write them down. There's a program called Trello, where you can click on a note card and write it. Don't judge it, just don't think about it in order. Don't write longhand is really helpful, or write in notes on your iPhone. Because the best ideas never come when you're sitting in front of your computer. It's when some asshole cuts you off and takes your parking space at Whole Foods. Then you've got some dialogue. You have some ways to kill people. And then some motherfucker cuts you off in traffic. It's all right there. And then you're like, fuck. Then you're driving and you like take the thing, you gotta dictate it. So, you know, you never, and then when you sit down, you can look at those notes and it sort of gets the juices flowing. You're like, oh yeah, I got it. I remember it gets you back into that kind of flow state. But I think in terms of if you've never written a screenplay, buying screenplays and reading them to understand it technically, but finding those kind of online crash courses, I think are very helpful to, you know, find a way in.
Incredible.
Thank you for the words of wisdom. Thank you.
Thank you. Eli, thank you so much for giving us a masterclass and insight into the filmmaking process. You are absolutely incredible. Let's hear for Eli Roth, everybody.
That's the last convention here for Eli before I get into Thanksgiving too, yeah, so come say hi before I head to the order.
Yes, come to his booth.
That was great, thank you. Excellent, great questions. Made it super fun.
Thank you very much. All right.